And the New Deal had two pressing needs to meet: to reorganize capitalism in such a way so as to overcome the crisis and stabilize the system, and to head off the alarming growth of spontaneous rebellions that appeared in the organization of tenants and the unemployed, in the movements of self-help, and in the general strikes in several cities. So the years 1933 and 1934 were the most trying times for the Roosevelt administration. So the first objective of the Roosevelt administration was to stabilize the system. And this can be seen by the National Recovery Act, or eventually what became institutionalized as the National Industrial Recovery Act, or the NIRA. Now, the act was designed to take control of the economy through a series of codes agreed upon by management, labor, and the government. And basically what the NIRA did was it fixed prices and wages. It limited competition, and it ensured cooperation between capital and labor. And the act created codes for fair employment practices and fair competition. While the Supreme Court is going to rule the act unconstitutional in 1935, and the National Recovery Act is going to be replaced by the National Industrial Recovery Act, or known as the Wagner Act of 1935. Now, a very important provision in the act became a boon to organized labor, and that is Section 7A of the NIRA. Now, Section 7A of the act allowed workers to establish their own independent unions, whereas the Republican administrations of the 1920s created company unions. The New Deal outlawed company unions. It prevented companies from interfering in the organization of unions. And it allowed for the formation of unions to be legal. And so this was very important. Section 7A of the National Industrial Recovery Act legitimized union activities. So when Roosevelt took office, a rebellion engulfed numerous parts of the country. Desperate people were not waiting for the government to help them. And all over the country, people organized spontaneously to stop evictions. You can imagine being evicted from your home in New York, in Chicago, in all of the major cities. When word spread that someone was being evicted, a crowd would gather, the police would remove the furniture from the house, put it out on the street, and then the crowd would get the furniture and put it back into the house. And it was the Communist Party that was active in organizing what were known as workers' alliances in numerous cities. And it was the socialists who organized unemployed councils all over the country. So it was the Communist Party and the Socialist Party that were involved in helping people. And people organized to help themselves, since business and government, in the form of the Republican and Democratic Party, were not helping them. In fact, 1.5 million workers in different industries went on strike in 1934. Howard Zinn relates that during the spring and summer, longshoremen on the West Coast, from California to Washington, in a rank-and-file insurrection against their own union leadership, as well as against the shippers, held a convention, demanded the abolition of the shape-up. Now, what the shape-up is perhaps most of you have seen around your neighborhoods, is a kind of early morning slave market where gangs are chosen for the day, for the day's work. You can usually see these gangs around Home Depot. Well, they will go out on strike trying to eliminate this shape-up. And within days, 2,000 miles of Pacific coastline are going to be quickly tied up. And the Teamsters cooperated, refusing to truck cargo to the piers, and then the maritime workers joined the strike. So when the police moved in to open the piers, the strikers resisted en masse, and 2 are going to be killed by gunfire. And so San Francisco shut down. And so when we take a look at when the police moved in to open the piers, the strikers brought together tens of thousands of supporters. And then a general strike was called in San Francisco with 130,000 workers walking off their jobs. The city became immobilized. Let's take a look at what happened.
The summer of 1934 was a season of protest. New federal laws supported the right to join unions, and across America, a wave of strikes tested the New Deal's commitment to labor. In San Francisco, striking longshoremen had closed the port for 2 months. Violence erupted when police broke through strikers' picket lines. 2 men were killed, more than 70 injured. Within hours, California's governor, Frank Merriam, declared a state of emergency.
Forbearance with the striking longshoremen in San Francisco has passed the point of common sense and good citizenship. I have ordered the National Guard of California to move into San Francisco to safeguard life, to protect state property, and to preserve order.
Labor leaders believed that Merriam had called out the Guard to break the strike. In support of the longshoremen, more than 100,000 union workers walked off their jobs calling for a citywide general strike. San Francisco shut down. People began to hoard food. The Roosevelt administration was now torn between supporting or condemning the general strike. New Deal Administrator Hugh Johnson spoke for those who felt that labor had gone too far.
You are living out here under the stress of a general strike. Now the right of dissatisfied men to strike against a recalcitrant employer is inviolate. But the general strike is quite another matter. That is a threat to the community. That is a menace to government. That is civil war.
After 4 days, workers called off the general strike. Longshoremen and ship owners agreed to arbitration, and the city came back to life. For many, the strike was a warning of the power which the New Deal had placed in the hands of ordinary working people. And troops on the streets of San Francisco triggered fears that the country was on the brink of revolution.
In addition to riflemen,
Moviegoers across America saw alarming reports of the general strike.
also the police have organized the only mounted gas squad in the world. They've been ordered to round up the Reds, the radical agitators blamed for the virulence of the strike. They're out to comb the railroad yard, to rout out nests of communists hiding in empty boxcars. That gas will drive them into the open. Yep, there's a bunch of them now, dodging stinging gas clouds.
All right. Those darn communists, those darn socialists agitating. It took 500 special police, 4,500 National Guardsmen with infantry, machine guns, tanks, and artillery units to end the strike, again, by force. Now, you know, students, why conservatives in this country cry communist and socialist agitation at events that normal people like you and me participate in when seeking justice and economic equality. So get to know what the Red Scare is. Do not be afraid of social change and the development of consciousness. The people of San Francisco were not.